So I would say compared to most people, I live what you would describe as quite a boring life. Like I tend to do the same things every day. I don't kind of go on adventures. I don't do much exciting things with my life. And that's kind of how it's always been. But the only time I ever found this a problem was when I was at university. So when I started university, I've got very quickly locked in to this like ultra basic routine. So I'd leave the house in the morning, I'd go to all my lectures, then I'd go gym, and then the rest of the day would just be spent sitting at home, either playing games or consuming content. Life was not very interesting. I didn't really go on any adventures. The only semi-interesting thing I would do would be in the evenings, like go to parties and stuff with my friends. And those are pretty fun times. Like that did bring a lot of excitement into my life, like going to all these parties and having an exciting nightlife. But something that I really struggled with was because of the fact that my life was so basic, because I didn't really do anything crazy with my day. Like I had this ultra simplistic routine. When it came to speaking to people at these parties, when it came to having those conversations, I'd just be really struggling for topics. It felt like I had such a limited amount of things to talk about. You know, I didn't really have any interesting stories from my life. I hadn't been on any adventures. And you know what everyone says? Like they say, you should let the other person talk more. Like you should ask them lots of questions. And that's what I did. But after cycling through all those basic questions that everyone asks at university, like, what course do you study? Which accommodation are you staying in? Once you run out of those questions, it kind of turns into interview modes. Like it feels like you're just struggling for all these questions to come up with, and it's not really a conversation, and you're kind of weirding the other person out. Like, why do they want to know so much about me? And this would happen to me so many times. Like I'd be struggling for things to talk about. I'd go into that interview mode where I'm asking lots of questions, and I could be talking to a girl. Like I could be talking to a girl, bro, and I would notice the exact moment that she checks out of this conversation, where she like stops feeling interested and wants to leave and go somewhere else. Like she'd start like staring off into the distance or like looking for her friend. And you know what? Like I would always go along to these parties with my friends, yet I'd end up kind of in these solo conversations where I was struggling. And I'd look over at these guys, like some of them off on their own or some of them having like group conversations. And they always seem to be like absolutely killing it. Like they were just constantly talking, like being really loud and extroverted, never seemed to be running out of things to say like I was. And the people they'd be talking to, they look like super engaged, like they were having such a fun time compared to my conversations, which were literally dying out. And you know, when we go to these parties, like people would come over and greet some of my friends. Like these were well-known guys. They like left a strong impression on people, and like everyone would be like looking forward to them arriving. But with me, like people were constantly forgetting who I was. Like I was just kind of the friend tagging along to like the more social, popular guys. So naturally that would lead me to believe that I'm just more boring, I'm more awkward than my friends. And in particular, I just thought like they must just live so much more interesting lives than me. They seem to have so many things to talk about. Is that because like they're out living these like crazy lives and going to all these, they're traveling, they're going to all these places, they just have loads of things to talk about, where I'm kind of sat here like not knowing what to say with my boring life. But you know, one day I decided to investigate what my friends were actually talking about. And I know that sounds kind of weird because, you know, they're my friends, we have our own conversations and things that we talk about. But I kind of just assumed to be this engaging with like other people, these strangers, with these girls, they'd have to be talking about something like interesting. To have that effect on people, it would have to be like quite a unique or interesting conversation to hold their attention like that. But when I listened to these guys speaking, I was shocked. Like they were talking about a whole lot of nothing. They would be talking about the most random, trivial stuff, like the dumbest stuff. I can't even think of an example to give you because it would just be like something so like mundane and stupid, but somehow they'd just be having like the most lively and energetic conversations. Like everyone would be laughing and having a good time. And I'm kind of just thinking like, what the fuck is going on? And that's when it starts to set in. Actually, these are just my friends from university. They don't have this amazing celebrity lifestyle that I don't know about. They don't have all these stories and these experiences that I'm somehow not being included in. Yet they're able to have these fun and energetic conversations whilst talking about the dumbest stuff while I'm over here struggling. And you know what? It's kind of like when you receive advice about like having conversations, like you need to start reading more books, or you need to become educated on current affairs, and that will give you more topics to speak about. Like, that advice sounds good until you actually go to a party or you hang out with some young people and you realize that is not the type of thing that people are talking about. No one is talking about current affairs or the weather or like the state of the world. And plus, when it's a party, when the alcohol is flowing, people don't really want to talk about serious topics like that. They're actually much more comfortable just talking about the most random shit ever. And that's why all these videos and books or just social skills advice in general that fixates on particular topics or tells you that you need to learn about this particular area to have more interesting conversations is complete bullshit. It doesn't take into account that conversations are fluid. They are inherently spontaneous. They're not just this pre-planned thing. Like, you wouldn't talk about the same topic to every single person at a party, would you? You'd want things to kind of naturally evolve. You'd want the conversation to start in a particular place and then end in a completely different place. It's actually the emotions behind these particular topics that make conversations fun and memorable to be a part of. So observing my friends talk about absolutely fuck all, like the dumbest stuff, yet still have people engaged, have these massive groups surrounding them, I realized that what you say, the topic of the conversation, really is not as important as you think. And what people remember is how you make them feel. People remember how you make them feel much more than what you actually say. So with my friends, particularly the more social ones, there was always this underlying energy to their conversations. It was always kind of jokey and playful and not too serious. And that would be enough to elevate even the most boring and mundane conversations into like a fun and memorable conversation. So that kind of energy is sub-communicating to the rest of the room that it doesn't matter who's here or who's watching me or like whatever the environment is. I'm solely focused on having a good time. Like, it doesn't matter where I am or who I'm with. I'm just gonna have as much fun as possible. And where I was probably too focused on what to say or the specific topic of the conversation and came across as probably quite intense for the other person and made them a little bit uncomfortable. The conversations that I observed with my friends were always much lower social pressure, like not intense at all. And you know, it's kind of obvious, but when you have that energy, that fun energy, people just gravitate towards you. And the really nice thing is that everyone leaves the conversation feeling so much more positive for having had it. So when it comes to having interesting conversations, like, I don't want to overcomplicate it for you. Sure, things like showing genuine interest in the other person and actively listening and asking the right questions, all good advice. It's all good advice, don't get me wrong. But for now, I just want you to focus on the basics, which is just having a good time, having fun conversations, actually enjoying yourself, because the rest of the stuff can come later. Once you simply just master the art of having fun in your conversations and bringing that positive energy to the other person, you'll be absolutely blown away by like how much easier everything else gets. The next time you're at a party or just any social situation, that's the one thing I want you to focus on. Like, let this be your one takeaway from the video. Just focus on having fun and making it fun for the other person. So I also want to talk about how you actually tap in to that positive frame of mind in the moment, how you actually kind of unlock that more fun, energetic side of yourself. Now, the answer is actually pretty obvious, because you can't fake having fun. Like, the solution is to genuinely be in the moment, having fun and enjoying yourself. But that's kind of easier said than done. Like, this is something that I used to really struggle with, because I'm kind of a more introverted kind of guy. I had friends who are much more extroverted. The friends that were kind of succeeding and bringing me along to these parties were more extroverted and more comfortable being themselves in public. Those things would always get in the way of me having a truly good time. I didn't feel like I could comfortably be myself around others, and I was just very in my own head at certain events like this. And maybe there's more to this, but the one thing that really helped me overcome that more introverted side of myself and kind of start to have more fun and get on the same level as the rest of my friends was this idea of warming up for social situations. And I do mean warming up in the same way that you would warm up for a session of intense exercise. So you wouldn't just from nothing start sprinting for 10 miles straight. You would ease your way into it. You would start kind of jogging slowly for a little while before you progressed onto that harder sprinting session. So in the same way, me as an introvert, if I've been spending a few hours on my own or not talking to anyone, you can't just drop me into a room full of people and expect me to be really funny or really charming or not have any social anxiety. It just doesn't work that way. I have to go through this phase of warming up where I'm surrounded by maybe a smaller group of people, maybe a group of people who I'm more comfortable being around, like my friends, where I do feel like I can be myself, where I do feel like I can start to have fun and, express myself. So what I would do is, if I knew I was going to go to a party in the evening, and lots of people do this as well, like this is a common thing at university, I'd always find some kind of pre-drinks or just like a little small group of people you can like hang out with before you go to the main party. So I might meet up with, it could even just be one friend, but usually it would be like 3 or 4 people. We're laughing, we're drinking a little bit, we're playing music, the vibes are just perfect, and I'm really starting to feel more comfortable expressing that social side of myself and just taking that time to warm up and ease myself into it. It wouldn't even be for that long sometimes. It might even be like 20 minutes. It would do so much for me. Like I'd feel 10 times more confident going into that party. Like I can hold and carry any conversation and I'm not taking myself too seriously. I'm not stuck in my own head walking into that room. And most importantly, I'm actually having fun and I'm ready to continue having fun. So I believe that anyone can unlock this side of themselves. Like even a super introverted person, someone who's super reserved, when they're with their friends, when they're laughing and having a good time with people that they trust, they become almost extroverted. They become like quite loud and very comfortable expressing who they are. So it doesn't matter who you are, you already have that person inside of you. You kind of just need to bring him out. And finally, after you've implemented the advice in this video, like just focusing on making those conversations as fun as possible and light-hearted for the both of you. If you're still running out of things to say, all of your conversations just come to an awkward silence or a standstill. I did make a really good video a couple of months ago on how to never run out of things to say in conversations. Like I get super specific and practical with how you can basically never not have something to say next. So I'd advise checking out that video and maybe combining it with the advice I just gave you in this video. So that is all from me today, bro. I will see you in the next one.